meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners for Thursday, August 27th. I would like to have a motion to approve the public agenda, please. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And the adoption of the minutes from the meeting of July 30th. Motion for that. Vic moves that. Any errors or omissions or criticisms of the meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners for? No, I guess not. All those in favor? Opposed? No, she's. Okay, so we have 4 items on the public agenda. We have Mr. Lowenberger here for the Mobis benefits. So I'm going to turn over to the chief first if he has any opening comments, and then Mr. Lowenberger, you'll be up next.
I'll keep my comments very brief. Good afternoon, Your Worship and members of the Board of Police Commissioners. Every year we present to you the annual report from the pension plan, the police pension plan. Obviously, since we shifted to the new target retirement income plan, there's now 2 reports that will come your way, one from the old plan and one from the new. So that's what Colin Lowenberger is here to talk about today. So I'll turn it over to Colin.
Mr. Lowenberger, thank you very much for appearing, and I know you'll give us a riveting review of both pension plans. So the floor is yours.
I'll do my best. Target retirement income plan. There's now
under the governance structure plans, we have an obligation.
So just one moment. We're having a bit of an issue with our sound system where we are. So just a moment.
It's a bit of a delay too.
Just a moment. Okay. Perhaps if you speak more directly into the to your microphone, it will help us because you were a bit muted.
Sure thing.
So just one moment. We're having a bit of an issue with our sound.
So annually, we bring reports to the commission regarding the operations of the 2 plans. We're a little late in bringing them to the commission this year. Clearly, the times that we're living in are challenging. It's probably the highest priority thing to deal with today. So I'm here today to run you through them. I'll try to keep it fairly brief, and I'll run through TRIP, the Target Retirement Income Plans first, and then I'll shift to what we call the old police plan afterwards. So you've got copies of the annual reports for the 2 plans. I'm going to start on page 4 of the annual report for the income plan. 2019 was a very good year for the TRIP. We finished the year with the assets up a little over $20 million. That's based on 2 things. On number one, on it's a young plan. Contributions come in a lot faster than benefits get paid out. Also because we had really good investment performance. In 2019, or through the end of 2019, we had a 1-year return of 21% and a 3-year return of 10.5%. Just to put that into perspective, our expected return over that period was 6.4%. So we did very well in 2019. Contrast that with the liabilities in the plan. The fixed liabilities in the plan are at $53 million, and the result is that we have a funded ratio of 126%.
Colin, sorry, quick question for you. I know you have your microphone. Do you have any other microphone on, either on your laptop, aside from your microphone for speaking here? Because we're getting some feedback. Andrew, you have a muffled voice. We can hear you, but it's hard to hear you.
Yeah, no, I only have the one, but I can switch to a headset if that might work better.
Maybe you might want to try that just in case. Sorry about that. Sorry, quick question for you. I know you have your microphone. Do you have any other microphone on? either on your laptop,
Okay.
aside from the microphone. Now, before you go, just going to check, does anybody else have a microphone on? Because I can hear my voice in the background, repeating myself in like a loop. Yeah, there's a delay, and my voice is being repeated, unfortunately, again and again. So I don't hear my voice again, looping around. That's good. Okay, Colin, go ahead. Try this.
Okay. So where in TRIP we don't look at traditional measures like we would in a lot of pension plans. We actually typically would look at something called the affordability ratio. And the affordability ratio is a measure of how well the plan is funded, looking into the future. And I'm very happy to tell you that at the end of 19, the plan had an affordability ratio of just shy of 130%. So we're well funded. We're not at the point where we want to look at making improvements to the plan, but I think it's fair to say that the plan is working as designed. Just because we're so late in the year, I thought I'd give you a bit of a flavor of how we've fared over the last or the first half of this year. And this year has been bumpy to say the least, but we're still doing quite well. We're sitting at about 100 or just over 130% at June 30th. So the plan's held up quite nicely in the first year. In terms of how or things that I think are worth sharing within the plan, wanted to let you know that the board and the Plan Partners Committee were pretty active in 19, and there's really a couple of big things that went on. One was that there was a couple of amendments made to the plan. So the first one was to improve the governance of the plan, and more importantly, to make a change to in the original plan design. There was an observer position that it wasn't really a trustee. It was intended to allow people to train to be trustees down the road, and there were some concerns about how that would work if we were challenged on whether it be the happenings in a meeting or whether it be how those people were trained or where they came from. So we made a plan, with the Plan Partners Committee, we made an amendment to the plan, and those observer positions have now been eliminated. And what we've done is we've created an alternate trustee program, which does a couple of things. It alleviates the problems that we had, or the concerns that we had with the observers. It also makes it easier to maintain quorum. In that, this is a small board, and we have a couple of extra people that we can draw on to get quorum now. So that was the first change. The second change was that we made an amendment to the benefits. When this plan was designed, the initial benefit was based on the average of 5 years earnings for members, and that was set to expire at the end of 19. I'm happy to say that because the plan is well funded and things have gone to plan, we made an amendment to extend that provision out until the end of 2022, and at the end of 2022 we'll take a look at it one more time. So things worked pretty well there. In terms of other activities that the board undertook, an actuarial evaluation was filed at the end of 2018. So just in case you're unfamiliar with it, actuarial evaluations aren't filed until into the next year. So in 2019, an actuarial evaluation was filed at the end of as of December 31st, 18, and that's really to minimize future risk within the plan so that we don't have any surprises coming up. And subsequent to that, we have also now filed a 2019 valuation, and that's just because the the first half of 2020 has been volatile, and we wanted to make sure that the things that we had done up until now could be maintained for as long as possible. So essentially, we've just crystallized the solid returns that we had in 19 and made sure that we could roll things forward. Going forward, we've done some work within our portfolios to start to minimize risk as the plan ages. The risk that we want to be able, or that we want to allow in the plan in terms of funding and contributions needs to be brought down, and we took steps to do that in 19, and we'll continue to do that in 2020. So that's really all I have to say in regards to TRIP. And I'm happy to take any questions or to jump into the Regina Police Pension Plan.
Thank you for that, and I'll just see if there's any questions from members of the commission. Otherwise, we can go into the second one. So, any questions? No, we're good. Thank you. You can continue on.
Okay. So the Regina Police Pension Plan is the closed plan. As I said earlier, we often refer to it as the old plan. It also had a very good year in 2019, and I think the thing to keep in mind when talking about the old police plan is that we manage it very differently than we manage TRIP, and so what we say is very good in regard to the police plan may seem rather dull compared to what we did in TRIP. However, that being said, returns in the Regina Police Plan were also very good. Where we ended up at the end of the year was that we had an asset base of $334 million, so that grew by a little better than 20, or just shy of $25 million, which is phenomenal for a plan that is closed and has very limited new money coming in. And really that's based on strong equity markets in 19 and steps that were taken to minimize risk that resulted in what we would call liability matching.
Thank you for
portfolios,
that. I'll just see if there's any
moving with the liabilities. So what we end up with is
second one. So any questions?
Liabilities that grew to $373 million. But more importantly, our funded ratio went from 87% in 2018 to just shy of 90% at the end of 2019. And again, this is right on plan. In this plan, we are looking for that funded ratio to improve slowly. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, this plan has a special provision within the pension regulations. If the funding level improves too quickly, we start to lose parts of that provision, and so we want to manage it to that provision. We want to minimize additional risk into the future in regards to the payments that are made by the Regina Police Service into the plan, because changes to those payments will impact the current budget, and we want to be cautious of that. And so we've taken steps to minimize the likelihood of that. So we look pretty good. How we got there, or the steps that we've taken along the way, is I think we started talking about this a few years ago, but we had a goal of reducing the risk within the plan by 40% over a 5-year period. We achieved that in 2019, and so the risk of the funding changing now is 40% lower than it was in 2014 when we closed the plan. We were able to file an actuarial evaluation at the end of in 2019 for the end of 2018. Again, with the idea of ensuring that contributions don't change over the next number of years. And we've taken that same step in 2019 to push the next statutory valuation out to 2022. So we can comfortably say now that we will not be encountering a situation where where contributions into this plan would have to change over the next number of years, and I think that's good for everybody. Going forward, we continue to work with the board to further reduce risk, and it's sort of through a process of realizing gains when they happen, locking them in, and then taking risk off the table, and we'll continue to do that going forward. So all in all, we've got both plans did very well in 2019. So far through 2020, despite the volatility we've seen in the world, they've held up quite well, and we're positioned very nicely going into the latter half of 2020. That's all I had prepared for the Regina Police Plan as well.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation, Colin. Any questions on this file? I see that Councillor Murray is there as well. Councillor Murray, do you have any questions at all?
I don't. I keep fairly up to date being on the board, so I don't have any questions. But Colin, can you refresh my memory? How many members are still pulling from the old plan currently?
There's give me 1 second. I've got it here in front of me, but there's still 450, give or take, people in the old plan.
Perfect. Yeah, that was my question.
Sorry. Yeah, I have actually. There's about 450 active people, and there's just shy of 1,000 total.
Okay, and that also includes any other beneficiaries from the plan. Like it's not just ex-service members too, right?
That's right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Murray. That's good. Well, thank you very much, Colin, for your presentation. That's great. Do I have a motion to receive both reports 18 and 19, please? Councillor Young. Any further discussion at all? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you, Colin. Administrative reports. We have the 2019 Pursuit Review Board reporting. Chief, you want to start us on that?
Sure. I'll just give some opening comments. I'm not sure if we have Inspector Audrey Young on the phone. Oh, we do? Okay, perfect. So every year, as you know, we publicly present a few different reports to the board and to the citizens of Regina. Use of force, our warrant strategy are a couple of examples. Every year we present a Pursuit Review Board report. This really, I think, encapsulates the work that's done to minimize the number of police pursuits, which we know can be a risk to the public, to the police, and to anyone involved. And so our policy is very strict. It protects the public. It protects our members and anyone that might be involved in a pursuit. So this report is the annual report. Inspector Audrey Young, who's joining us, is the chair of our committee, and our committee meets on a regular basis, and this is the results of their evaluation. So I'll turn it over to Inspector Young to walk us through this report.
Thank you, Chief.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, and members of the board. I think I'm coming through clearly.
We're having a hard time hearing you. Councillor Murray is there as well.
Okay.
Councillor Murray, do you have any questions at all? Yeah, I think there's another issue with microphones open.
How about this?
Aside from the microphone you're speaking, do you have any other microphones on your computer?
I'm actually talking from my cell phone.
Are you streaming on your computer?
Sorry, Your Worship, I'm calling in from my cell phone.
Oh, so you're on your cell phone. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Would you like me to call in?
Just a moment, Inspector Young. We're just going to try and figure this out. No one's. What's that? Okay, you want to give us a shot again, Inspector Young? Go ahead.
Certainly.
Thanks, Councilman. That's good. Thank you very much, Colin, for
I'm here to report on behalf of the Regina Food Service Pursuit Review Board. How is that?
Yeah, this is not working. We're getting a loop of my recorded conversation going over your voice, which is very muted, so we're going to have to try to find out what this is. Just one moment. Administrative reports. Did it reset? Okay. You want to try again?
Certainly. I'm here to report to the Board of Police Commissioners.
Yeah, now we don't hear you at all.
Okay, would you
Oh.
like me to call in from a landline?
We can hear you a bit now.
I could speak up considerably, or you might hear me from the police station.
If you speak louder, that's good, but we're hearing you a bit. It's good.
Okay, would you like me to carry on then, sir?
Yes, please. Yep.
Okay, so I'm reporting on behalf of the Regina Police Service Pursuit Review Board for the reporting period of January 2019 to December 2019. The Pursuit Review Board consists of a number of senior members of the service who are appointed by the Executive Committee. We're mandated, the Saskatchewan Police Commission mandates all municipal police services to report vehicular pursuit statistics on a quarterly and yearly basis. And this report presented to you is with respect to pursuits initiated by members of our Regina Police Service. As you can see, the numbers have been fluctuating over the last few years, like since approximately 2016. We've had several changes to our observations, which are mandated by the Police Commission, Saskatchewan Police Commission. They've asked us on 2 different occasions to include evade police action into our total number of pursuits, and then have asked us to remove it. So I'm going to walk you through that. So in 2019, the recorded number of pursuits were down by 52% as compared to 2018. There were 46 pursuits in 2018 as compared to 27 in 2019. And that difference is as a direct result of not including the evade initiations or incidents into the pursuit category. We were asked in 2018 to adhere to the Saskatchewan Police Commission's pursuit policy, and it involved those changes I spoke to. At that time, we were asked to, as I said earlier, to include evades in our total pursuit number, and then in 2019, the Commission asked us to amend the capture of that, and we went strictly with actual pursuits and included that in our report. So the recategorization, as you can appreciate, has shown that fluctuation of 52% decrease. And if I could draw your attention to the comparison I've made with respect to 2016 and 2019, or 2018 and 2017 and 2019. In those years, evades were included as pursuits, and in 2019 and 2017, not included as pursuits. So that's the variation in numbers if you're making some comparisons yourself. So the board reviews all pursuits that occur that involve our members of the Regina Police Service, whether or not there's damage to the police vehicle. We evaluate these pursuits on several levels, and we look at our policy and review the nature of the event. We classify pursuits in 4 levels, from 1 to 4. 1 being that there was total compliance. The pursuit action in and of itself did not deviate from policy, and that's a level 1. The level 2 pursuit policy is that the pursuit tactic or action was less than compliant. So, for example, let's say there was a passenger in the vehicle. We have policy that speaks to pursuing vehicles where there is the driver has passenger or passengers in the vehicle, and that would include a deviation from policy in a level 2, for example, by the board. The results of that review in those categories would go to the members inspectors to notify them of the board's findings and the level of the findings. The level 3 pursuit action was deemed by the board as deemed as inappropriate, but no criminal charges are laid. So in that, for an example, for a level 3, the pursuit, let's say, went longer than 2 minutes. There were some driving actions on behalf of the police that were against the Traffic Safety Act. Maybe there were more than 2 police cars involved in the pursuit itself, and perhaps there were passengers in the vehicle. That for the board would be a level 3. Sorry, as I move through it, thought it would be without my hands free, so I'm turning pages. My apologies. So overall, the category of pursuits and the number that I provided for you, level 1, there were 13. There were 13 pursuits that met policy and were appropriate. There were 13 level 2 evaluated pursuits that were less than appropriate and less than fully compliant with policy, and there was 1 level 3 pursuit tactic that was deemed inappropriate, but no criminal action or charges were laid. In that instance, where it was categorized as a level 3, a memorandum was sent to the member's supervisor to follow up with that individual, and in the case, the recommendation was for method of correction was coaching and training. Further, we report to the Board of Police Commissioners the number of evades police files, which is an evade occurs when a police officer attempts to stop a vehicle, conduct a vehicle stop for someone who's evading or violating a Traffic Safety Act. So they went through a stop sign, they're not wearing a seatbelt or something of that nature, and or something that speaks to the criminal code. And if the driver chooses not to stop for police, that is what constitutes an evade in our in these records of evades. So we have 239 evades from 2019. In that, the 46 pursuits, which I've spoke to, are also included in that. In 2018, police were involved in 308 evades. In 2017, they were involved in 279. In 2016, were involved in 310. I went as far back as 2016. As I said earlier, the correlation to 2017 and 2019 are that evades were not included in our number of pursuits, and in 2018 and 2016 they were. So the numbers, as you can see, are close in proximity, and I don't want to. I'm not 100% predicting, but they're very close to say the consistent application of our review. Is there any questions?
Thank you very much for the presentation, Inspector Yall. See if there's any questions from members of the Commission. Councillor Young.
Thank you for trying to speak with us today. This has been difficult for you and us. My question is, could you describe what a deviation from the policy with just cause might be? What would that look like?
The Chief?
I'm having trouble.
I think we're really having a hard time reading feedback, so maybe I'll just have the Chief answer that.
So when it comes to pursuits, this is a very dynamic thing, and it unfolds very quickly. So we have some very strict criteria that we follow in our policy to ensure that we keep the public safe. So there's a lot of reasons why a pursuit needs to be considered or needs to be discontinued, including things like, are there passengers in the vehicle? Are there more than one traffic devices being ignored? Is the person on a motorcycle? Is the driver a young person, for example? Do you have a passenger? Do you have a ride along in the police car? Like, there's a lot of different things. Oftentimes when a pursuit is initiated, if you think about it, police often will put their lights and sirens on to pull a vehicle over, expecting that they're going to pull over. If they don't pull over, they have a decision to make. They either let the car go, which in the case of a traffic stop or some of those types of things, oftentimes that's what will happen, is they'll try and pull the vehicle over, and if it doesn't stop right away, the car disobeys the police, but the police don't go. And so that's considered an evade, but not a pursuit. If the car disobeys the police and the police go after the car, even if it's for 2 blocks, that's a pursuit. most of our pursuits last a short period of time. So often when they try and initiate a pursuit, or they try and initiate, a traffic stop and the car doesn't stop, they're not sure whether the driver is a young person, how many people are in the car, if there's any passengers, because maybe you can't see through the back window. So oftentimes it's when they review that they determine this shouldn't have happened because there's a passenger in the car, or there's other parts of the policy that were not followed. But oftentimes the officer doesn't know it. So the one case you can see there, the deviation from policy with no cause, was a situation that lasted long enough that there were enough policy infractions that the officer involved should have known you cannot carry on this pursuit. There's too many deviations from policy, and so there was no just cause to continue it on. So it's really about what the officer knows, what they perceive, and how they are interpreting the policy. Oftentimes it's a training issue with members. I mean, policy is important and we talk about it often, but when you have a breach of policy, sometimes it's a great opportunity to educate the members. And often what we see is a misstep by one member is a great way to educate the entire shift, because the entire shift is involved and they understand the situation. And so that's usually what would happen in those cases that are not considered over-the-top criminal investigations. They're just a deviation from policy.
So much of what you do. We're having trouble here now. So much of what you do is a judgment call. So training that happens all the time must be very helpful for that, because you learn as you go, and
Right.
Everybody learns.
Absolutely, and when you think about the two big reports that we give annually through the board to the public, use of force and pursuits, those are both very quick, dynamic situations that unfold in an instant. And so not only does the officer have to rely on his or her training to make the decisions on how they're going to react, but then there's a board that adjudicates on what they did after the fact. And it's very easy to be able to say, well, this shouldn't have happened because of this, but the officer might not have known that at the time. And so that's the value of the review. That's the value of continued training and education to our officers.
Okay, so when they evade and they're not followed, do you have any stats or anything to add as to how many of those are picked up later? Like, I'm sure you take license plate numbers and all kinds of things.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the answer of that. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure we could get you the numbers. It's not included in this report.
I'm just curious about
Yeah.
the fact that you usually find them anyway.
Right. I would say that is very typical for a few different reasons. Number one, there's a license plate on the vehicle. So if it's not a stolen car, that license plate is a very significant piece of the investigation that allows us to do some follow-up work. Oftentimes, the officers know the person. They'll say, that car just evaded and it was Evan Bray driving the car. I recognized him, I've dealt with him before. And then whether or not they arrest Evan Bray that night or he becomes an investigative suspect in a future investigation, they can always follow up with it as well.
Okay.
So there are lots of ways and means that we can still hold the offender accountable without racing through the streets of Regina.
Okay, so you have to be really careful, don't you?
It's one of the most
Driving.
dangerous things, I think, for policing, and that's why we have very, very strict controls on pursuits. And as you can see, we pride ourselves in trying to keep our numbers very low.
But everybody knows you on the force, so you're going to have to be really.
If I'm the driver, you're right, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Other questions? Councillor Murray?
No questions for me, thanks.
Okay. I just one question is related to the level 3. What's the consequence, or what happens when there is a pursuit with no cause? You mentioned there's training involved. So what's the difference between that and then, let's say, level 2, where there is cause?
Well, I think in level 3, we have seen in the past years where officers have been disciplined. We've given remedial orders, advice to future conduct. There's been discipline consequences as a result of it. It may not be a criminal offense that occurred, but it's no different than use of force. If you if you don't follow the use of force protocol, but it was done with good intentions and there was no, there was justification for what you did, then oftentimes it's just ensuring that we communicate, we train and educate. Sometimes with a level 3, that will work as well. And in this case, that is what happened. It was a very inexperienced member that needed some coaching and training, and that's what we did. In the case of if it was a senior member or someone who should have known better and made those decisions, there could be potential consequences under the Police Act from a discipline standpoint.
Okay, that's good. That's fair. Other questions? Motion to receive and file, please. Vic moves that. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. The last report on the public agenda is the monthly crime stats, Chief.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the monthly crime stats are continuing to have favorable numbers in them. We are seeing some downward trends in almost all categories. There are a couple that are unfortunately trending a little bit high, and homicides are one of them. If you look at our report for this month, year-to-date homicide, the number is 8. However, but for next month's report, we will have 2 more on there, recent instances that have happened in the city. So we are currently sitting at 10. So this is the report accurate up to the end of July. But if I look at crimes against the property, this is where we are seeing a significant decrease right now in the city of Regina. We're down 34.7% overall. Theft of auto rates are almost down 50% from what they were at this time last year. We did a little bit of digging into why that is, and sometimes that's a real moving target and tough to put your finger on. However, I did learn a few things. Number one, we have a few very highly active car thieves that are in custody and have been in custody for a good chunk of 2020. There's no question that has an effect on our auto theft numbers. We know that theft of auto is one of few crimes where you have one person who commits numerous crimes and could be responsible for various stolen cars. So having them in custody due to investigations and criminal charges has been positive. There's been a little bit of operational technique work that has changed that has yielded some great success, and that's been positive. And then I think COVID itself has reduced the number of people that are in their vehicles, that are traveling, that are driving to work, driving to the store, and they're at home where their vehicles are, and that has also likely contributed to our number. Crimes against the person reflect a year-to-date decrease as well. However, it's much smaller. It's a 2.6% decrease. Our robberies are down 18% this year, which is positive. So overall, when you put the two together, both crimes against person and crimes against property, we've got a 29.5% decrease. And on the stats extract on the second page, I won't go through all of them, but I've pointed out our homicides are high this year. Our arsons have been something that have been trending high as well. I talked a little bit about the arsons in last month's meeting. We have been able to make some significant and key arrests that have reduced them as of late, but we did have a month or two where we were having a lot of vacant houses, garbage bins and garages being lit on fire in our city. And then towards the bottom of the page, our property crimes, theft of auto, theft under, theft over 5,000 and mischief, they're all trending down, which has been very positive. The last thing that I'll say is that we had a very significant decrease in the first half of the year in the number of traffic tickets that have been issued. And although that we're still showing that we're down 33.1, that's actually an increase from the percentage that we were at last month due to some traffic initiatives that we've been doing starting in June and going through the summer to target speeding, noisy mufflers, and some other traffic offenses that have been bothersome to citizens of the city. So that's what I've got for you this month. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Chief. Question, anyone? Councillor Young.
So, you just said that there are some traffic stops for speed and noise, and as you know, we have had a lot of issues across the city with late night or early hours of the morning speeding and noise. Do you have anything you can share with us about what the difficulty is with that, and whether you've been successful?
Yeah, so, I mean, I think when it comes to speeding, I'll just use this example. I was sitting in my backyard last night. I live in the south end of the city, and I heard someone burning donuts somewhere within about a 10-block radius of my house. I have no idea who they were, what type of car they were driving. It was definitely loud. It was definitely annoying. That often is what residents in the city are dealing with. They don't necessarily witness the car, but they can hear it. They hear it from their house. They hear it if it's late at night. They're sleeping with their window open. So part of the challenge with crimes like that is catching it in happening. And police officers obviously are on patrol 24/7, but they're not everywhere. And the chance of them being right sitting in the intersection when that car does a brake stand and smokes out of the intersection is oftentimes not going to happen. Every once in a while it does, and you always feel so vindicated when that happens, that the police are there. But we ask your residents if you can get us a vehicle description, if you can get us a plate number, that's even better, because again, not being able to catch them in the offense, but do a door knock and have a conversation with the owner of the vehicle would be a positive as well. And so I know we've talked with you and other councillors about other environmental things that potentially could be done to try and dissuade vehicles from being driven in that way. As goofy as it sounds, there's been a lot of really nice construction done on some of Regina's roadways. And so some of the streets that are newly paved, South Albert is a good example. It's beautiful, there's no bumps. And so unfortunately, we see cars taking advantage of that. So we've done, as you know, starting in June, we did Operation Speed, where we did some focused enforcement on a few different areas of the city. We get a lot of feedback from the public. It's the number one thing that we hear from the citizens of Regina, their concerns with regard to traffic safety. And so we do focused efforts throughout the city, throughout the summer and I guess the whole year, but really when there's a lot of people out, pedestrians, we focus on school zones and parks and different areas where people tend to congregate and be out on foot. We've had some great success. We've run some really good projects, but it doesn't slow down the amount of work that's there. So I think it's just educating citizens on what they need to gather in terms of information to provide to us. I had Councillor Hawkins provide me or connect our police service with two people who live in the south end of the city who had really good vehicle descriptions of a vehicle that was constantly causing problems. And our officers were able to go out and do some enforcement, catch the vehicle, subsequently have reduced the calls involving that vehicle just because of the accurate description that we got. So those types of things are very helpful.
Okay. Well, we passed a motion at council last evening, late afternoon, to look at all kinds of things we could do, and of course the RPS will be part of that.
Right.
To try to see if there are some other things we can do and what are other cities doing. But I think you just named one thing, and that is that when the road is nice and smooth and there's no cars on the road because of COVID, there are fewer cars on the road. It's just beckons some people to speed. Last night we talked about cars being a sport, and that if there was a place where they could race cars, would that help? Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think what I'll just say for the purposes of today is that we're really happy to work with council and with the city administration on this. I have also heard that, well, perhaps if you provided an area for people to go, well, I would look at my legal counsel and a few others in terms of risk and liability of saying, here's a place you could race your cars. So I think there's a bit of a balance to that, but yeah, there's definitely work that can be done there, and sometimes it's not about enforcement. There's a few other ways that it can happen. So, we say that everybody who drives a car with a loud muffler and likes to drive aggressively with loud music has a neighbor, and that neighbor watches them come and go every day. And so there's some education that we can do that really helps us in our enforcement and the back end of things. So we'll continue to work with council on that.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Young. Other questions? Councillor Murray? I guess not. Okay, we'll look for motion to receive and file the report, please. Okay, Commissioner Yee, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. And a resolution for private session, please. Councillor Young, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thanks, everyone.